this is something that I did. So I had a bunch of money saved up as well. And I thought, hey, I'm going to take advantage of the First Home Super Saver scheme. And I was in a similar time of year as this one, where I put a bunch at the end of the financial year into my super towards the First Home Super Saver scheme. And then I did again at the beginning of the next financial year. So within a couple months, I literally hit the caps of the First Home Super Saver scheme.
The Get Rich Slow Club podcast is a collaboration between Tash Etchman from Tash Invest and Anna Christina from Perla. The Get Rich Slow Club acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land we record on. From coast to coast, across land, waters, and communities, we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Any advice is general and does not consider your financial situation, needs, or objectives, so consider whether it's appropriate for you.
Welcome to the Get Rich Slow Club podcast,
where we take you from beginner to confident investor,
where we can teach you everything you need to know about investing.
So come get rich slow with us. Welcome back. We're doing this whole episode on anything you need to know about super because it is coming to the end of financial year. We're going to be talking about what if you have some extra money that you want to put into your super, how does the First Home Super Saver work, and the super guarantee, how it's changing and what you need to know about it. But before we do, Tash, do you have a money win or loss of the week?
Yes. I have an idea in my head where sometimes I'm like, oh, I won't buy the ready-made meals at Coles or Woolies because they're a little bit unhealthier than making them yourself. But then I'll get too busy and just order Uber Eats or something, or like eat toast for dinner, which isn't very healthy. So I got over the mental hurdle and I've been buying the Coles ready-made ones on special in the fridge.
So what kind of ready-mades? Are they in the freezer or in the fridge?
No, in the fridge.
Okay.
So it's like the Coles brand one. I had a chicken curry one last night. They've got sweet chili chicken noodles. Yum. And they were $4 or $5 each. So cheaper than Uber Eats and probably healthier than Uber Eats. But yeah, still easy.
It's hard finding that middle line between spending all the money or not.
And like thinking I can be healthier all the time because I have all these great ideas in my head and then I get so busy and then I just don't do them.
Yeah. Oh, it is hard. It is hard. I feel like juggling also just life. You're just like, oh, where do I fit in food? And we've been really good at bulk buying and cooking and then freezing, which has been really fantastic.
Yeah.
But just like recently we had some frozen mince or whatever in the freezer, pulled it out, cooked it, made a big meal and then was like, well, now we have to put it back in the freezer. And it's like, We've been doing that as well. We had like burritos that we froze that have been really good. We had like a chicken salad for dinner the night before, but it's nice to just switch it up sometimes and have it there just in case for those moments. Yeah. You have to do what you have to do in order to bring down the cost of food, but also just be happy.
Yeah. It's not even sure, it's the cost and I love a good deal, but it's also just like the time as well.
It's so
I'm thinking I'll have more time and then I don't have more time.
I was thinking of you the other day because I went to go get that. Like there's this pickup rotisserie chicken with fries and gravy. I've talked about them on the podcast before. And it's always just like a highlight because I'm like, no one has to cook. And we've got a whole tub of gravy that I love and fries that are really seasoned well. And it's just, it's not as expensive as doing an Uber Eats because we always drive. That's the rule we have. We're not paying for delivery. But then the flip side is like no one had to spend money to cook it. There's, you just pick it up, you take it home. Yeah. So I was thinking of you. I was like, Tash would laugh at me at like how excited I am to get a truck.
Great. I miss the exciting stuff from like when I was a kid. Things like picking up takeaway or going to, what was it, Video Easy, where you get your DVD and watch the video rentals and you go home and watch as a family. Or
did they have Blockbuster here? Did you guys have Blockbuster?
Well, I went to Video Easy. I think it was called. It was like the orange one and Blockbuster, I think was the blue one.
Yeah.
But yeah, even just watching shows at 7:30 every night with my family, I miss those kind of like, I can't believe that like it's not really a thing anymore. But you binge watch a show, you don't watch one episode every week at 7:30.
I feel like you have to make those things special. So what we've been doing for the kids as well is my partner will be like, research what movie they would like that they haven't seen, sometimes download, maybe I shouldn't say that, but, or get it from whatever streaming device you're paying for. Nonetheless, we'll like turn down the lights, we'll close the windows, we'll make popcorn and it'll be family movie night. And it's just like, there's something really special about that because I don't know about you, but when I was like a kid or a teenager, we'd come over and we'd rent, a DVD or whatever, and everyone would come together and you'd watch and, we'd have to wait till everyone's there and then you press play. There's something really special. Whereas now it's like, you can pause it, you can go, you can watch every episode in a row, but making something special is really Awesome.
And takeaway ties into that because we would go and get the video easy, the DVD, and then we'd also pick up takeaway.
Yeah.
And then we'd all meet back at the car and then go home.
And it's a very special thing,
Yes.
right? So yeah, the kids find it special when we get takeaway because we never do. We always eat at home. So they're like, Mama, can we buy dinner tonight? I'm like, all right, let's go. So it's special for all of us, including me.
I want to get a Thermomix, but I might share that for my next money when it lost. Because I've been thinking about a Thermomix for over a year. But next episode, we'll see maybe.
We'll see.
Coming
soon. All right. Well, let's jump into it. So we're going to be talking a little bit about super. It's really important to be thinking about super at the end of financial year because you have caps on the type of super that you can contribute into. So we're just going to do a little bit of a debrief of what actually super is and what the contributions are.
The fun, very confusing thing. So there are before tax and after tax contributions. So concessional contributions are before tax. These are your employer contributions. So your super guarantee, salary sacrifice, and any personal contributions with the tax deduction. So think concessional before tax, but you get the tax deduction. This is capped at $30,000 per year currently.
And then there's the non-concessional contribution. So this is your after-tax contribution. So these are after-tax personal contributions or spousal contributions. So for example, you have money in your bank account and you then want to contribute it into your super. This is the ones we're talking about. So these are capped at $120,000. Now there's also carry forward options that you might want to consider, but we're not going to dive deep into that in this episode.
So we got a question. I just received a hefty inheritance and have already maxed out my before tax super contributions to reduce my income, but I'm not really sure what to do with the rest of the money. Is it really worth it for me to invest after tax into super if it doesn't reduce my taxable income?
So let's just go back to that. So this person has already fully contributed into their before tax contributions.
So they've got their tax deduction already.
Yeah, and that's capped at $30K. So they've already invested $30K. So they've got another hefty amount of money and they want to know whether it's worth it to put it into their super. So let's just talk a little bit about that. There's no immediate tax deduction that happens. So unlike that concessional pre-tax contribution, they're not going to get a bit of tax back because non-concessional, so these after-tax contributions, they are made from income that they've already paid tax on, and it doesn't reduce their taxable income. And therefore, there's no incentive tax-wise immediately.
However, even though you've used this year's cap, you might have unused caps from the previous 5 years that you could use depending on how much you've been contributing through your job or whatever beforehand. Your total super balance does need to be under $500,000 and there are some other terms and conditions. So definitely check if you can use any previous years to put more money into super.
So that might be something that you want to consider for your concessional, which is your pre-tax contributions. One of the other things that people might not fully understand is that there is a tax advantage that comes from having money inside your super. So we talked a little bit about how you can get a tax benefit from concessional contributions, so the before tax, but it works a little bit differently when you actually have money within your super.
Yeah, so you might not get a tax deduction for putting it into super, but the returns inside of super are taxed less than they are outside of super.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It sounds so confusing,
Yes.
right? Like when we're talking about super. So let's just talk a little bit about, for example, if you have money within your super and how it's taxed within the super environment.
Okay, so if you're investing in your personal name, your earnings might be taxed at your marginal tax rates are up to 47%, but in your super account, still in your accumulation phase, so before you've retired, as you're still putting money in actively and working, it's only taxed at a maximum of 15%. So that's a big difference between the tax outside of super versus inside of super. There are some other things to consider here, like maybe you have franking credits outside of super, which adds on another level of complexity, but not everything receives franking credits anyway.
Mm-hmm. Also, capital gains are kind of looked at differently as well. If you're investing outside of super, again, it might be taxed up to 47%, again, at your marginal tax rate, or you can get a 50% discount depending on if you've held it for more than 12 months. Whereas within your super, it's taxed usually at around 10% now. There's more information about this, but that's usually where it's at. It's very complex, again,
Yes.
the superannuation.
We are trying to simplify it. In the pension phase though, so anything outside of super is taxed just as income, but your super is generally tax-free on both earnings and withdrawals, which is really cool. So it's kind of like you pay the tax upfront, but then it is treated with the special tax or the lesser taxes or maybe tax-free later on.
Yeah, so that is why it is often much more advantageous to invest within your super as opposed to outside of your super, if that is something that you're considering.
So even though you don't reduce your taxable income upfront with a non-concessional contribution, you do benefit from paying less tax on the investment growth and potentially no tax at all if the funds are used in retirement under the pension phase.
Hopefully we are clear as mud. The other thing is for this person specifically, if they're looking to buy their first home, they might be interested in the first home super saver scheme, in which you can actually contribute before tax or after tax contributions towards that. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later in this episode.
If you've just received a big inheritance, I think we've just spoken about all of the spreadsheet math answers, but not the like personal human answers to this either. Like firstly, just take a moment. You don't need to rush and make all these big decisions. You can just wait if you want to for a little while until you know what you want to do. It also might be worth chatting to an advisor, especially if you've gotten a really substantial, or what did this person say, a hefty payout, hefty inheritance. Yeah. Like it may be worth paying for advice, because this is something you don't want to not get wrong, but like make a big mistake with.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of intricacies when it comes to taxes and money and investing. For example, I know that there's a Division 293 that you might not know what that is, but nonetheless, you don't want to trigger that if you're putting more money into your super, or you're a high income earner, or whatever that might be. And these are the situations where you'd want to talk to a financial advisor. We're talking about super right now, but there might be other things. Maybe there's an investment property that you're interested in purchasing. Maybe you do want to invest outside of super. Maybe you have kids and you're thinking about how to set them up financially for the future as well.
Maybe the advisor sets you up a trust or something, or a new structure to hold your investments.
Exactly. Maybe you have a business or you want to start a business. So there's a lot of other considerations that can come into play. It's great that you're thinking about super or outside of super, but there might be other things that you want to think about. And that's where it pays to get advice.
Definitely. And definitely take your time as well. No need to rush if something emotionally taxing has happened recently.
For sure. So we have another question from a listener. I've saved $50K towards a house deposit, but still have about $25K more to save. I was looking at the first home super saver scheme, and I'm wondering if it's worth it for me when I've already saved up a bunch of money already.
Oh, I never got around to using this because I didn't leave myself enough time. Did you use it?
I did use it, and it might be actually interesting for this listener in terms of how I used it. Again, not advice, but this is something that I did. So I had a bunch of money saved up as well. And I thought, hey, I'm going to take advantage of the first home super saver scheme. And I was in a similar time of year as this one, where I put a bunch at the end of the financial year into my super towards the first home super saver scheme. And then I did again at the beginning of the next financial year. So within a couple months, I literally hit the caps of the first home super saver scheme. And that was a while ago. But let's first actually take a couple steps back and talk about what that actually means.
Okay, so a quick refresher on what it is and the rules. So under the First Home Super Saver Scheme, you can contribute up to $15,000 per financial year towards the scheme, and the total cap is $50,000. So you need 4 years technically to make the most of it. Yeah. It only works for voluntary contributions, so not your employer ones that they add in for you that's mandatory, but anything extra you put in. And contributions must stay within the $30,000 concessional contribution cap.
There's a couple things you need to be mindful of if you're contributing to the first home super saver scheme. So for example, if you are putting in concessional contributions, so these are those pre-tax contributions, you can only take out 85% of that money. So you have to think of it as, hey, you got a bit of a tax deduction as you got to do that. So you don't get to take the full amount out. They're going to hold a little bit of tax. You can kind of think of it that way. Whereas if you're putting in non-concessional contributions, so those are those after-tax ones, you've already paid the tax on that money. You can take out 100% of what you've contributed to your super.
That makes sense, because usually we save with our after-tax money anyway. We pay tax on it and then we save it. And then we pay tax on the interest or something anyway. So that makes sense.
Yeah. So this is just essentially how you use it. So again, to kind of recap that, you have your caps that you have, 15 cap per financial year, 50K cap holistically, and there are voluntary contributions, and you can do those in 2 different ways. Concessional, which is pre-tax, and non-concessional, which is after tax.
Here's an example of what it might look like. So let's say you earn $90,000 in the 24-25 financial year. Under the updated tax brackets, your marginal tax rate is 30% plus the 2% Medicare levy, so 32% total. If you salary sacrifice $15,000 into super before the end of financial year, you avoid paying the 32% tax on that $15,000, which saves you $4,800. The money is taxed at 15% going into super, so $2,250. So your net savings is $2,550. So inside your super, you'll have $12,750 invested and growing. So saving $2,500 is pretty good.
Yeah, when you do the math, right? And then similarly, you could potentially repeat this in the next financial year if you have a bunch of money saved up, right?
So if you repeat that in July and you've contributed $30,000 or $25,500 after tax, it'll potentially save you over $5,000 in tax. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's really important to know the numbers behind the first home super saver, because a lot of people are like, I don't get it. You just put money in. I don't really see it. I don't understand. How do you get your earnings? Like, what does it work? So we're just trying to demystify that because it is a pretty cool scheme. I actually only have met now two people who have used the first home super saver scheme, and both of them work in the finance industry. So you already know it's often quite beneficial when you run the numbers. I just wish more people knew about it.
It's just a bit confusing.
It is. It's absolutely confusing.
Because super's confusing, and then there's an extra scheme on top of it, which is confusing, but it's so beneficial.
And it's confusing how you put the money in, and it's confusing how you take the money out and what percentage. And then it's also confusing what your earnings are. So that's a whole other can of worms as well.
We're going to do a whole separate episode, I think, on this, because I've got lots of questions around like, what happens if you change your mind? Like, how do you actually go about the process of taking the money out? What are the mistakes you can make? So we'll do a whole other episode another time.
So just a couple of things to keep in mind. Your employer's 11.5% super contribution count towards that 30K cap that you have within your concessional contribution. So just make sure you check how much room you have left for your first home super saver. So again, that cap is 15K, not to be confusing, but it is confusing.
The 15K cap or the 30K cap? There's so many caps.
There's so many caps. So let's just clarify. There is a concessional contribution cap that's 30K. So that's your pre-tax contribution. Holistically, within your super cap, you can put in 15K towards the first home super saver. So that can be within the concessional contribution or the non-concessional contribution. And then holistically, to access your first home super saver, that's a total of 15K over multiple years.
50K over multiple years.
Yeah, sorry, it sounded like I said 50.
Yeah,
yes,
50.
50.
So many fives.
Oh, yes, confusing.
So if you've got money saved and time on your side, contributing to the First Home Super Saver scheme around end of financial year can be one of the most powerful ways to grow your home deposit and reduce your tax. So if you have money saved already, you could make 2 well-timed contributions across financial years. So you can fast track your First Home Super Saver scheme, gosh, all the S's, First Home Super Saver scheme strategy, while still having plenty of flexibility to invest or save the rest of your funds outside of super. So you can use it now, even if you're waiting 5 years to buy your first home and you've only got a few $1,000s, or you could, if you've got your 40 grand, you could put in 30 grand over 2 years if you time it well.
Yeah, but there's also a whole bunch of things you need to consider because this is for your first home. This isn't for an investment property. You can't really access this money again if you choose your mind and decide, hey, actually, I want to buy a yacht instead. I wonder if you would. But nonetheless, so there's just a whole bunch of things that you do need to consider before jumping into the first home super saver scheme.
Check the eligibility criteria, make sure you understand it.
For sure.
Amazing. Next question. I hear super goes up next financial year. Does that mean I make more money? How does that work?
This is a great question. So what I think this listener is trying to ask is the super guarantee, which is the amount that your employer puts into your super, is changing. So it's currently 11.5%, and that is now going to rise to 12% as of July 2025.
The thing is, whether or not you see more money from that increase depends on how your employment contract is structured. So if your salary is exclusive of super, so it might say you earn $70,000 plus super, then your take-home pay stays the same and your employer contributes more into your super. So yes, you get more money, but it's going into your super fund and not into your bank account.
Now, if your contract says your salary is inclusive of super, so let's say that's $70K a year including super, then the extra super is taken from your total package, which means your take-home pay may slightly be decreased to account for the higher super contribution.
I think salaries inclusive of super are a little bit sneaky on the employer's part.
I know. We had a big chat about this when we wrote our book, remember? I was like, this is the big thing. I had so many people message me and be like, I didn't even pay attention that my contract said inclusive of super. And therefore, we've had a couple super guarantee rises over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So that means your take-home pay is getting smaller and smaller each time.
Yeah. And if you mentally have been getting paid super on top of it and you're like, I'm getting 90 grand and you think it's inclusive of super, but it's not.
Yeah.
Or you think super is extra, but it's inclusive. Like that can be 10 grand less that you're not getting maybe.
So just a note for anyone who is negotiating a contract right now, just read the fine print and there's a huge difference between inclusive and exclusive. So just another reminder, we've talked about this multiple times, but it's worth saying again, your concessional contribution cap is $30K per year. So this includes your super guarantee. So your super guarantee, which your employer puts in, is a part of that cap. So if you're putting additional money into it, just be really careful that you don't go over that cap.
Let us know if you have any more questions. I want to do more Q&A episodes. The super ones are confusing at times, so any other fun questions would be great.
Not super questions.
We love super. We love super.
We love super.
Super just hurts my brain with all the words you have to say and the different caps and
And it's so easy to mess up.
It's so hard to say. First home super saver scheme strategy.
Concessional contributions, non-concessional contributions. Try to say that really fast.
It's too much. Too many S's.
Yeah. Anyways, let us know if you have any questions.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us. If you found this episode helpful, please rate us 5 stars, write a review, or share with a friend. If you're new to investing, make sure to listen to our first 10 episodes. Follow us at Get Rich Slow Club or Tash at Tash Invests or me at Ana Cristina.
This show was brought to you by Natasha Etchman, who is an authorized representative 1299881 of Guideway Financial Services, AFSL 420367, and Perla, who is an authorized representative 1281540 of Sanlam Private Wealth, AFSL 337927. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to investing. So make sure you check out our financial services guides and read the product disclosure statement and target market determination for any investments you're considering. See our show notes for more info.